Hi everyone, it's me, West Coast Mom, and today I'm going to show you how to sew on a button. Now, whether you can sew your entire wardrobe or you've never ever used a sewing machine, this is a basic sewing skill that I think everyone should know how to do because buttons do fall off. I've bought ready-to-wear clothing where the buttons are very loose and they had to be reinforced, and you know, sometimes things just happen. So everyone needs to know how to sew on a button. Alright, so just to sew on a button, you just need a needle and thread. I have it threaded and I've looped it over so that it's double because it's more strong. This is just basic thread that I have on hand. You can use a heavier duty thread, especially if you're using more of a heavy duty button that you want really securely on, and you need some scissors. Now the method I'm going to show you is the method that my mother taught me, and I know that it works. It's obviously not the only way to sew on a button, but it is a method that I know that works, and it's pretty easy and it's tried and true, so I'm going to share it with you today. Alright, so let's start with the 2-hole button. I'm going to put it on this fabric. I'm going to orient the holes vertically because that's the way I like it. I have my needle and thread ready with a knot at the end. Believe it or not, the knot is not necessary, but I just do it out of habit. So first what I'm going to do is make a tiny stitch vertically because I said I was going to orient the holes that way. This is a very tiny stitch. It's only about 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to pull my thread through. And I'm going to leave a tail of about 2.5 to 3 inches. So I haven't pulled it all the way through to the knot. I'm just pulling it through and I'm leaving that long bit there. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to attach the button. I'm going to go through the top hole and down to the bottom hole. And then I'm going to go down all the way through at the bottom of this stitch. And then you'll see that the button's on there, and on the back there is my thread. Now I'm going to push up through around the top of that stitch, and you kind of have to do this by feel because the button is in the way. You just kind of poke your way through and wiggle the button around so that you can get through that hole. Remember, careful this tail, don't pull it all the way, don't pull it too tight so that it goes all the way through, and then you go down in the bottom again. And we're going to do this for a total of 3 stitches. So this is the second stitch. 3 seems to be a good number for a rule of thumb to make things work. Here's my third one. I'm going through the top. I like to try to keep the back neat, but to be honest, no one ever really sees this. So you don't want to be all over the place. But like I said, no one ever really looks here, so it's not a big deal. Okay, so I have done 3 times now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull my thread out, but not through this hole, but so that it's under the button. So what I mean is I'm going to poke my thread through and I'm going to come out here. All right, and so I have pulled the button through. I have it with 3 stitches. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate and I'm going to wind this thread around the button 3 times. I do it in a clockwise fashion. So that's 1, 2, 3. All right, so we've done 3 stitches and I wound around it 3 times. Now all I have to do is just knot it off. All right, so I'm taking this little loose tail that we had at the beginning and I'm going to tie it in a knot with the rest of the thread, and it's going to go tight underneath this button so that you can't see it. So that's why you need kind of a long tail, because this makes this part easier, unless you have nice agile fingers. All right, there, I've knotted it. Now I'm folding the fabric back and I'm just going to trim it. And then there you go. That button is ready to go. All right, so now we have a 4-hole button, and I like to square it up like this. Now we're going to do it very similarly to this 2-hole button. I'm going to start with a little stitch with my needle and thread, and I'm going to leave a 2.5 to 3 inch tail again. Now, I always like to work top to bottom, and we're going to do this in an X shape. So I'm going to go into the top right button hole, and then I'm going to go into the bottom left, right? So it's at a diagonal there. And then I'm going to go through my fabric all the way to the very back. All right, so I'm going to do like this. All right, careful that tail. You don't want to pull it all the way through, but you do want to make it kind of taut. So there we go. So when I square up my button like that, so I've done 1 diagonal. All right, now I'm going to push my needle up through the top right, and then I'm going to go down. So I always do top to bottom. So I'm going to go up, and I need to find that hole. So there it is. So there's the top, and then I'm going to go through the bottom. All right, so that's 1 X that we've done, And just like I said with the other one, I like to do 3 times. So that's 1X. All right, so I'm going to alternate. Now I'm going to go on the top right and down to the bottom. So that's half the X, the other top here. And I'm just doing it by feel. I don't know how messy it is at the bottom. Let's take a look. Well, it's not too bad. My stitches are kind of all together, but like I said, no one ever sees this. So that's 2 X's. Now I'm going to do 1 more X. So starting at the top again. There's this thread out of the way. So top, I like to work top to bottom. I like to be systematic that way, and then that way I don't lose track. And then here's the last stitch. So I've done 3 X's. All right, so there you go. I did it in this contrasting thread so that you can see. Quite often people will use a matching thread. Now I'm going to push my needle up to the base, but not through the holes, just like last time. And then I'm going to wind it 3 times, clockwise. 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to tie it off. So that's why I said, remember that the knot is kind of irrelevant on the bottom of my needle and thread, and this is why. Because you're not using those ends anyways, but I just tend to do it out of habit. I've tied the knot, and now I'm going to trim it really close to the end, and there you go. There is the 4-hole button. Okay, so here's the last button. This is the button with the shank where there's no holes up top, but it has the little sort of tunnel underneath. So you can figure out how you want to orient the button, whether or not you're going to be going side to side or up and down, but it's done in the same manner. So I'm going to go side to side this time. I have my needle and thread here. I did not knot it this time. And because I'm going side to side, I'm going to make my stitch horizontal to match that tunnel. So I'm going to pull through, and I'm going to leave, as usual, a 2.5 to 3 inch tail, and then I'm going to go through the tunnel. So I'm going through, and I'm going to go down all the way through to the bottom, and then pull it taut so that the button is in place, and I still have my tail here. So you don't want to pull too tight because it'll literally go all the way through. All right, and so what I'm going to do is you can kind of cheat because you can actually peek underneath and take a look. Well, you're going to have to anyways, because you got to get it up, and then you got to get it through the tunnel. All right, and I usually do this like everything else 3 times. However, if this is a heavy coat, you might want to do it a few more times because it's more heavy duty. You might want to use a heavier, thicker thread. It all depends on the application. So that was 2. Here we go again. I'm going to go through up the bottom, through the tunnel, out the other side, and then back down again. And let's do 1 more time. All right, so I still have my tail here, haven't lost that. So here we go, we're going to go up in the same area. And make sure you pull it snug. You don't want any loops and things like that because that'll make the button loose. Through the tunnel, and down to the bottom. You can see what it looks like underneath. Those are all my stitches there. It's reasonably neat. All right, so I've done it 3 times, but you do however many times that you want, depending on how strong you want it and how much you want to get it done based on the application. I've come through. I'm going to go around 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Pull it taut. Now I'm going to use my tail and I'm going to tie a knot, and then it's all secure. So it's the same method that I use for all 3 buttons. Like I said, generally I like to do 3 stitches and then 3 times around. You tie your knot, you trim it, and you're done. And it's all attached and ready to go. All right, so that's how you sew on a button. And everyone should know how to do this depending on whatever kind of button it is. It shouldn't matter. It's always the same technique. All right, thanks for watching.